Hi, everyone. Welcome to another LinkedIn Live Real Stories. We have special guests today on a very special Halloween version of LinkedIn Live. We have our partners with BroadReach here today. We have Thea and Jim, and we're going to be talking about a little case study with Salesforce today. That's our agenda. So, Thea, why don't you give us a little background of BroadReach?
Awesome. Thanks, Scott, and thanks for having us. I'm assuming we're here today because we're the scariest client you've ever had, but I won't take it personally. But yes, BroadReach is a technology advisor out of the Twin Cities area. We've been around for 13 years now, and essentially we're a brokerage of technology services to business. We have a consulting aspect. We have a back office that helps with implementations and overlays project coordination and management services. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Thea.
Of course.
Valerie, why don't you kick us off with a quick story?
Yeah. So I think what we wanted to talk about today was just a little bit of lifting the hood up on a recent Salesforce implementation that we did. And so I think a lot of companies, at least through, our conversations, a lot of companies shy away from changing out systems or doing new implementations, introducing new tech because they just don't, they're scared of it. They're scared of the change management. They're scared of the technical debt that could come out of it. And so there's a lot of just barriers to making progress and making meaningful operational and business changes. And so we wanted to talk about how we kind of removed that chaos from the decision-making process and how we executed a really good implementation together as partners. So I guess I would start with saying, what if we go back to when you started to uncover that you wanted to change out your legacy CRM, what were you hoping to get? What were your hopes? And also what were you afraid of? So since we can go on this Halloween theme.
I'll start and then I'm going to pass to Jim. So when Jim came on board, as the sales leader for our organization, we didn't really have a true CRM. And so he was coming in and taking a look at what was existing, and he was, having a difficult time getting the reporting and the accountability tracking of the sales organization. And so we knew we needed to do something to augment what system we already had. We were pretty darn convinced when we met with Infinite Green that we were going HubSpot, actually. And we were very far down the path, and we were like, we're going HubSpot. We're just going to interview implementers and go from there. And you actually paused that decision-making process and said, are you going to want to implement a marketing tool, or is this really a sales CRM? And had us reconsider Salesforce, which I think made Jim really happy based on his past. But I'll let you chime in on that, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. We were 80, 90% down the road with our decision-making process. And we stepped back and had those first conversations with you guys, and Infant Green and Valerie, yourself and your team just did such an amazing job of peeling back the onion and understanding what mattered most to us. And as Thea alluded, right, you guys looked at us and said, okay, you're heading down a marketing path, but everything I hear is sales, sales, sales.
Mm-hmm.
I was ecstatic because I do come from a Salesforce background. And I think there's a lot of thought processes out there that, well, we're too small. Salesforce isn't for us. It's not the right fit. And you guys really helped us to understand that, no, that's definitely not the case. And we can make this customizable and fit your needs within a price point that is truly manageable for us.
Mm-hmm. Right. I would also say the scary part of Salesforce was that it seemed so big. Like Jim said, it seemed too big for us. We anticipated it being too expensive for us. And when we really broke it down and compared side by side, it was a better deal, and it could do more and we could grow more with it. And so that was a surprise. I think the other piece of fear there is we've all worked at a company with Salesforce, and there's so many people that have done it wrong and just made it messy, that having personal past experience that was negative was a little bit daunting too. So once Jim and I knew that Salesforce was right with your help, there was a little bit of internal sales, like, shh, it's okay. It's going to be okay. We promise. And it was. Yeah.
So I think that's a really good point. The fear of, it being a little bit too big, but also the fear of the unknown. Right. And so, like you said, you were already kind of going down a path. And so there's a bit of this, okay, well, we don't really know what we're getting. we know what we think we're getting, right? And so, I think that's one of the values of, engaging with a technology agnostic partner is that we will come in and we're looking at your best solution based on your experience, your organization, your goals, really all of your existing technology stack and what you're trying to get out of the system. And so really kind of taking that from a goal perspective and presenting the right solution. And, like you said, being already far down that path, it's really easy to just press the easy button and say, we've already gotten the buy-in, the procurement, the budgeting. I really give you guys a lot of credit to be able to say, let's pause, let's measure twice, cut once, and get the right tool for us in a way that is going to provide meaningful value, not just do something to do something. Right. And that's the other part about like system implementations is sometimes like people inherit them or they get given them and they're not a part of that decision-making process. And it really just feels like something's being done to them. But as we started the partnership with you, it just felt like so collaborative, like not just the two of you as stakeholders, but your entire team of stakeholders really had a seat at the table from start to finish. And so that was really meaningful, I think, to be able to bring the right design to life, regardless of like the system selected. So let's talk about that, that bringing that design to life, right? Like, I think one of the things that I heard was, sometimes the system seems too big and scary. How did you guys internally really maintain what we call a right-sized scope, right? How did you really say like, yeah, maybe we can do all of these things, but let's tackle these big fish first, right? Because I think that's where a lot of people just try to boil the ocean and instead of really kind of targeting laser focused on what's going to deliver immediate value. How did you guys manage through that?
I think it really started, our minimum viable product, our MVP plan was around what we needed to enable Jim with. And so it was around the sales process. So he did a lot of thinking on what should the sales process look like and how do we build a system to facilitate that and also hold folks accountable without extra work. We don't want our salespeople living in a CRM. If you have someone that has a perfect CRM, they're probably not selling very much, right? Because you want them out talking to customers. And so we wanted to make it simple from a sales perspective, but also fuel Jim and the greater team too, with the information we need to make the right decisions and know what's working and what's not. So we had a bit of a futuristic idea about what we wanted to track, but we wanted to keep it simple and in the sales focused environment. But I'll let you chime in too on that, Jim.
Yeah, spot on. We knew first and foremost, we already had a pseudo ERP system that was kind of running things that we were, forming into a CRM. And it was easy to kind of pick. It was a very powerful tool. We had done an incredible job of administering it for our needs, but it was just kind of falling short of truly being able to utilize it to drive sales in the process. And so we knew foremost that's what we needed to identify. And you guys worked with us to help us identify that process and make sure that our process was in line and flowed how it needed to within Salesforce. In the background, if we were to prioritize, that was definitely number one. Marketing and being able to drive campaigns and things like that was a number two. And then third is fully going into one system and bringing everything that we have from our current, so from an order object and driving the business all through Salesforce. We're definitely aligned and in process or in step with you guys. And as we've already discussed, right, that's our next stages as we move forward. So we had the alignment. We knew what 1, 2, and 3 were, and you guys were able to identify perfectly how we would phase that in, what the rollout would look like, and how we would move forward.
Yeah, we had so much. I will say, I'm sorry, I'm so chatty here, but we had so much ability to fully customize our existing tool, and we still do, and it's very good at a lot of things. But just because we customized it so fully, we had to really think, okay, what should it look like on the sales front? Because once an order goes into our system, our existing system is really powerful and very specific. But on the sales side, what should it look like? Not what is it and what, not a replica, but what do we want it to be? It's an opportunity for simplification and streamlining too. So we really took that to heart and kept on thinking every time we wanted to add something, do we need this? And how are we using it? And is it relevant, or is it just complicating things? Because our business is very complex already. You know, you look at an opportunity in Salesforce and there's a lot of things in there, right? Some of which had to be customized, but we really thought hard before we customized too much to keep it very streamlined and simple. Sorry,
Yeah,
Scott.
the reason that most of the Salesforce implementations that we have course corrected in our Infinite Green, and this is even before we were our formal Salesforce integrator, is this: the sales teams were allowed, I should say, to kind of act independently and act the way they wanted to use the system. They would kind of buck the process. And they would all want to do it their own way. So my question, I guess, Jim, is how did you get the sales team on board with a single process? And did you get any pushback from the team, and how did you work through that?
I would say for the most part, a lot of them understood potentially what was missing. I remember one of my first conversations, one of our advisors was saying, you know, I used to be able to come in and just have all my tasks aligned, and I knew what I had to get done that day and so forth. And the way we were able to tie that in, utilizing our online note taker and, you know, activities and next steps that were generated from that. And it was very easy to take what you helped us develop and show them the value right out of the gates. And that was the thing that really brought them over quickly. You guys worked in other things for us, like deal registration, which can get kind of cumbersome, but we're able to do that and send the emails and track everything now right within an opportunity. So there were things that were implemented that they could immediately see value in, that made their life easier, which made the whole application and the accountability side of things that much easier to get across. And it's a value statement. At the end of the day, if they don't see what's going to help them do their job better, they're going to buck it. And we were able to come back and show that right away.
Just enough shiny objects.
Yeah.
Not too many.
Well, I think quick wins is a really important story about any transformation, right? So whether it's an implementation or, you know, other aspects of change management, if you're able to implement a few quick wins and build trust and buy-in, you know, especially with the ability to customize, you know, tools, you know, you can really create that longevity for stickiness, for the roadmap, just by doing some like really meaningful quick wins up front. So I think that's a really good call out.
I think also we preach this to our clients as well. It's not always about the tech. It's about change management and the process of implementation. So I think Infinite Green is uniquely positioned as a consultancy, and you know business and you're interested in business and the bigger picture and how this fits into everything. But you also have the application people and the data people on the back end that can do really cool stuff in the system. So that marriage of those two things is a big deal. A lot of Salesforce implementers out there know Salesforce like the back of their hand, but they don't want to pay attention to the business side. Right. So I think that combination is really key.
Yeah, we ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's great.
You put us through the same process that we put our customers.
It was fun to be on the other side of the table. It was validating. Yeah, it's like
you're like, oh wait, I know why you're asking that. But
Speaking of questions, if anybody has a question, since we're on live, you can chat with us and we'll see it. So if you're watching live right now, go ahead, and if you have a question, go ahead and use the chat, and we'll try to respond by the time we're done.
Yeah. But I mean, to Scott's point, I mean, we've gone in, whether it's full system implementations or coming in and kind of course correcting one that's maybe not working or isn't meeting a client's need. We typically find that the requirements are really a handover from the client to the implementation team. It's not a collaborative effort. It's not a, challenging the status quo or really doing any process reengineering as a part of that, because really, like a lot of times, like you said, Thea, it's not really the tech, it's not really the system, but sometimes people fall into building their processes around the system. So, really understanding like, okay, what are we trying to accomplish here? What is, the best way to do it? There's now new tools and new ways to do it. So let's rethink it together and reimagine it and do a little bit of, journey mapping. Engage the right people on the team, like you guys did. Engaging the right people who are really impacted by those decisions to have that voice, and then creating the requirements from there. So I think it's just kind of just like your decision making process. It's taking one step back to take a few steps forward and have something that is simple and clean. And I would say that your environment is not complex, but it provides you the customization that you need to be able to have, those streamlined processes. So really excited for you. So now that you've been live, I guess, is there anything that you would tell somebody in your shoes as to, what is like one aha moment that you were like, oh, this was super successful, whether it's like the way you communicated to your team or, different parts of the rollout, like how did you really, start to see success from a adoption standpoint? Is there anything that you would tell somebody else in your shoes that could help them win or overcome some of those hurdles?
I think that before we went live, having the salespeople play around in it first before it was a hard cutover was a big deal. I think also bringing in people that we thought weren't as centric of users, right? That were more ancillary users. I think having them part of the process so that they know what's going on, even if they're going to be in there very rarely, is really important too, so that you have the whole team on board. But I think getting people's hands on it and testing things out is a really, really big deal ahead of time.
Yeah, one of the things too, we are an EOS shop, and it has been incredibly powerful for us to take the data, manipulate it in different ways. And as we're working through our scorecard and defining what really matters to us and what are our key indicators of future business success, we've been able to take this data now and just present it in different ways, dissect it differently, and pull together what we feel is truly the most important things that we're looking at today, and know that we have the ability to flex and alter that as we move forward and continue to gain that data integrity within the system.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the data piece is a really important piece that we should talk about. And in this particular implementation, we did bring in a data architect to go ahead and support that. So I think that's something that like a lot of teams struggle with when they're thinking about a system implementation, is they don't have maybe the resources or the knowledge or, really their hands around good, clean data. And so that's one of those other like barriers to making the decision and to starting that. So I think bringing in Dana from our team as a true data expert, I think that's something that we love to do as a part of system implementations, is to just provide confidence around the data that already exists, because most companies aren't doing a migration and starting with brand new set of data, right? They're trying to retrofit stuff. And so I think that that's just like a nice call out as to, really taking into account how significant the data portion is outside of, again, it's not the system, it's not the tech. This is our data. We own this data. We own the history of the data, and we have to make really important decisions regarding that to set us up for success in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think our magic on some of these implementations is having people that ran operations but are data experts make a huge difference. So you could have a resource that's a database expert, a data structure expert, but they don't necessarily have the operational context on who's going to be using it, what are they going to be using it for.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important aspect of any technology implementation, but I think Salesforce specifically, because it is CRM based, right? You've got customers, you've got revenue numbers, you've got operational metrics, frequencies, you might be paying commissions through this structure. So understanding who's going to be the recipient of the data is really, I think, a critical critical aspect of these. And not all integrators have that mindset.
Mhm.
You know, some of them are sales specific, some of them are service specific, some of them are marketing specific. So, you know, I think finding an integrator that aligns with your operational goals is something that is really important in the process.
And no, John, I think that the data architect shortened our timeline, honestly, because we did it right. You know, I absolutely think it was a shortening of the timeline, and it helped us to get the data in there in a clean way where it belonged. Because again, it's not a perfect template. It's a bit different. You got to tweak it and you have to augment it, and there's a lot of work there. I will also say that your teams taught us how to fish early on. So we have the person in-house that built our, inventory management system and the existing application that is still in place today. So wicked smart, very capable guy. And you taught him how to do those data entry and data migration practices as well. You also taught us, and we were able to replicate some of the custom formulas that you were creating in rules and validation of rules and workflows. And we were all able to do a lot more after you left our side very quickly and very confidently. So that was, I think, a big time saver too.
Yeah, you guys absolutely taught us how to fish, and it's been fun diving into things and getting in there and tweaking it and seeing it work. But a big part of that too, with your team and having Dana and such, is what we scoped and defined when we began is everything. We know there's always a scope creep, and as we move forward, we tended to finger paint on things a bit and take it a bit outside of the lines, if you would. And you guys just did a great job adjusting and making it work for us and understanding first what we were looking for as an output, and then working it backwards to make sure we got there.
And making sure we needed it. There was a lot of why. Are you sure?
Yep.
And we had to be sure. And sometimes we're like, no, you're right. We should, let's skip that. Mm-hmm. And there was some where we're like, no, that's really important. We absolutely need you to do that. Let's figure out a way to make it happen. Yeah. So I think that conversation and the consultative approach there and the pushback was really a healthy process.
Yeah. I think too many integrators would take the stance of, oh, we can do that too. Right. Mm-hmm. And they just keep on adding complexity because it's more, frankly, it's more hours, could be more modules, could be more revenue for them.
And future dependence.
And future dependency.
Yeah.
Now it has to be maintained.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a really important aspect. We like to push back in positive ways.
So do we. That's why we like working with you. It's a good fit.
Yeah. And because we've run these things. And I think that's the value that Infinite Green provides is we've had to operate this technology.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not coming from a software developer place. We're not coming from a reseller place. We're coming from a place that had to make hay with the tools in front of us. And we knew what bad implementations look like.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jim, now that you've had the tool for 2 months, 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
Is that all? Wow. Feels like longer.
3 months, 4 months, something like that. Was there anything that you would change in the platform? Or how's it going so far?
It's going great, obviously. And you know what? There really hasn't been any major things that we haven't been able to tweak or alter within a couple of minutes to maybe add one thing that we forgot to put in a drop-down list or those types of things. If you guys could get the closed one button to work a little quicker, we'd obviously appreciate that.
That's
good. Any sales organization would. I'm just enjoying so much like the dashboards and hitting the refresh, seeing things. And one of the unique things, and we actually discussed this, is utilizing it to help drive positive feedback. And I know it's truly simple, but within the first couple of weeks of implementation, we had some big deal wins come through, and getting that email sent out to the whole company and just having everybody celebrate it in a large group function or fashion has been great, because it's definitely one of those things. Sometimes you forget to celebrate what matters most. And when you're bringing in big sales, that really matters. And we've been able to do that. And that's been great.
Cool. Have you seen any impact from some of the cloud outages, like AWS outages? Just curious on if that impacted any of the operation in the last week or two.
No.
I
would. Did it impact you, Jim?
Not that we could see. I'm not sure, Valerie, if Treben had other projects going on, but I know that there were Salesforce instances, depending on which domain you were attached to, that had some.
I didn't experience anything. Did you, Jim?
Salesforce was actually our our only tool that stayed up and running.
And it was faster. With the AWS outage, it felt faster. I was like, I don't even want to know. I don't want to know why this is, but it
Yeah.
did felt
Funny.
faster. But yeah, nothing. I didn't experience anything.
Of our three
Four other
primary.
applications were all down, and it was debilitating. But yeah, we were still in Salesforce.
That's good to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, about the positive reinforcement, because we're a remote work environment. Of course, we come together for, quarterly sales meetings, monthlies. But I think the fact that we're also separate, and we're all doing this all the time, it's hard to celebrate. You don't have a bell in the office or anything. So this is kind of our bell. And you instantly felt the positivity and the vibe change. I know John asked too in the chat if it forced us to change our ways in the way we do things. And in a positive way, you're right. That's one of the ways it changed things. It also allowed you to polish our sales process and make it documented and easier to follow and understand, Jim. I think it really put a framework around your sales process. And the other thing that it did is it is continuously uncovering how people are being successful. It's a nice example because now I can say, okay, how did we get to the sale? When we're really good once the sale happens in our existing system, like very good. But how do we get to the sale and how do we replicate that positive energy and behavior and track what works, so we can have these leading indicators for what's going to hit our numbers.
Yeah, from a sales cycle perspective, you also create a little bit of best practice and consistency, right? And really change the culture through common language. So I think that's different too, is when you're all talking the same language, you're all kind of doing the same thing in the same systems instead of like updating spreadsheets and, everybody kind of off in their own model. You create this common language, you create this consistency, and then you create the shared celebrations that really kind of level up everybody from an organizational standpoint. It also it means so much, I think, to salespeople when you're looking at real-time information and you're not waiting a week for a status update or a pipeline review. You can immediately see okay, look, I saw that you moved that, or you had a really meaningful meeting. And when they can get that recognition from the very top, and it's so easy because it's just right there on a dashboard, it's so motivating for somebody. And without having to have all of this administration or, celebrate their own success, or they don't have to wait for it. It can just be proactive. So I think that's really meaningful from your leadership team and one of your focuses.
Yeah.
And I think you can keep an eye on, from a care and feeding perspective, that kind of recognition and activity in the system. You can kind of instantly recognize when someone's falling off that path.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's an important aspect of it too, is identifying, where someone might be challenged with the tool and the system, and being able to say, hey, this activity is slowing down from this person. What's going on? And being able to proactively reach out and say, is there a problem with getting access to the tool or the tool itself? I think that's a critical aspect of it. Watching people as they engage, and you have a pretty, it's not a huge sales team. I can't remember how many people you had in the field, Thea and Jim, but I think that enables you to keep an eye on what's going on, and pretty quickly too. You don't have to guess. The data is right in front of you.
Yeah. And it was good timing for us because we're planning on some good growth in 26 from a personnel and sales team size perspective, as well as revenue. And so it was a good baseline for that growth strategy too. It was really a necessary piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah. You have some good foundation.
Absolutely.
One last thing that I'd like to just share, I think, because it's kind of part of our core as to how we approach projects like this, is really just the project management piece of it. Is, I feel like we had such a good rhythm collectively of, snappy meetings. We weren't doing documentation or analysis by paralysis. We documented correctly, but we also kind of blocked and tackled in the ways to get things moving and create momentum right out of the gate. And I think where a lot of these projects stall or get scary or scope is, insane comes from a bit of that piece of, more of the endless meetings or revisiting the same thing or not having the right people in the room to make the decisions, and going back in circles around some key things. We were able to make quick decisions with the right people on the right calls up front, have them documented, have them set as foundations, and then that we're able to get off and running. So kudos to you and your team for being able to do that. I think like our teams gelled really well together in terms of flexibility. Like we had planned agendas. If we needed to pivot from that, we did, but we came right back to it, and we were able to get the right people in the right room quickly. So it was very, very smooth from my perspective, and super thrilled to see the success that you guys are having. And I know this is just the beginning for you, really.
Yeah, it really is.
I know we're at the bottom half of the hour, so our time is up. There are a few more questions in chat. I highly recommend you reach out to Thea and Jim via LinkedIn and ask them additional questions that you have. We have a QR code in the upper left-hand corner if you want to schedule a meeting with Infinite Green and talk a little bit more about your technology project. We'd love to talk to you. Other than that, happy Halloween to everybody.
Yeah. Happy Halloween.
And we appreciate the time. Anything else in closing?
Thanks for joining. It was truly a treat.
Oh, nice. That's fun. I like it. Thanks for having us.